We're back, baby. It's the charity stripe. Hit your free throws because they have free. Joshua Fisher, Alexander Desopoulos, and San Diego's own Nikki Snacks Kreider. We're back. Follow us on Instagram at the.charity.stripe or on Twitter at _charity_stripe_ because why not? Go follow us. It'll be fun. We'll talk to you about anything you want to talk about. It doesn't even have to be sports. But speaking of sports, NBA playoffs, my Celtics, down 1-0 in one of the worst third quarters of basketball I've ever seen. Toss, your Mavs are down after game one, blowout against Golden State. We'll start with you. Takeaways. Unfortunately, we agreed with you on the Wiggins point you made last episode, and it was karma. He came out swinging. But I'd love to hear from your perspective how you feel about that game one. Obviously, it's only game one, and anything could happen going forward. There's no reason to overreact. But maybe some surprises from the Warriors and some surprises from your Mavs.
I guess I'm a little surprised, and this would be a similar surprise that I feel about the Celtics as well, is that both teams got 3 days of rest after their game 7 or 2 full days of rest, and then they played on the third day.
Sure.
Which was different from, in the midst of this series where they were really only getting 1 full day of rest. And both teams looked tired, and they looked like they were feeling the exhaustion from the game 7. So I'm surprised a little bit, especially because Marcus and Al didn't play in the Celtics game, and Dallas doesn't have a lot of guys that have been deep in the playoffs before. I'm surprised that these guys don't have fresh legs, especially a guy like Luka, who I really feel like didn't have his legs underneath him from the jump. He had a decent first half, but he by the end of the game, he shot pretty poorly, and I feel like it was one of his worst playoff games, if not the worst playoff game he's had. And so you don't want to see that momentum peter out for either of those teams after they win really tough game 7s. But such is life. It's game 1. These are long series. There's a lot of basketball left to play, and both Ime and Coach Kidd have been fantastic at making adjustments defensively, offensively, and you kind of have to feel the team out. I mean, it's one game, it's one look. It's really hard to make a lot of assessments just based off of this first game. I mean, my assessments, if you were to just look at it through a microscope, would be that the Warriors are clearly the better team. They were at home. Most teams at home in the playoffs shoot better. They shot fantastically outside of Steph and Klay in the first half. And then in the second half, Steph showed up, Klay showed up. They hit some big shots. Every time the Mavs tried to chip away, there was an Otto Porter one-legged fadeaway 2. There was a Andrew Wiggins, contested 3. Like, those are the shots that go in a lot of times when you're at home and you have the home crowd behind you, and you're not batting an eye when there's a tight closeout or any sort of run from the opposing team. But I thought that the Mavs kind of shot themselves out of this one in the first quarter. They shot 15 threes in the first quarter. Obviously, this is a high volume 3-point shooting team. But sometimes you have to make those quick adjustments. If it's not falling, figure out another way to score. So those are kind of my takeaways. They didn't lose by as much as they beat the Suns in game 7. And that's all I was hoping as they went into the second half. I was like, just don't let this be like a 35-point loss, and it ended up being a 25-point loss. So kind of grasping at straws there, but we'll take what we can get.
They threw a lot of length at Luka when he came up to start. And we had a lot of conversations about playing their bigs off the court, but that didn't seem like an issue, really. They were able to kind of set Draymond back and have Otto Porter and have Wiggins at him. Obviously, those guys hit big shots, but again, kind of, parlaying into talk about the Celtics, depth is huge. We learned that. The Warriors have the depth. The Warriors have the experience. They have the depth. Going to Golden State's so tough. Look, it's not like you're going to even go as tough it is to go to play in Boston. You're not going to go playing in Golden State. Might be one of the toughest places to play with their current team. They got 3 rings. These guys, Some of them 2. This is a championship building. So going in there and winning game 1 was, for a team that's never been to the Western Conference Finals, like with this, current roster, it was going to be tough. So I don't think, again, it's a reason to bat a major eye. But scoring the basketball in different ways, I said the Heat Celtics series was going to have to come down to the tertiary pieces, the sides, not the mains, not the brisket, not the turkey, but the sides. Interesting that those are the 2 barbecue meats I go with. And in some ways I was right, because not having Al and not having Marcus, even though you put Marcus aside, I guess, showed how much depth we need, how much of a strength that was for the Celtics. Also, Marcus Smart being the point of attack on defense versus Jimmy Butler would have been huge. And having Al Horford, nothing against Robert Will, but having Al Horford to spell Rob Will in the paint would have been massive. He's a more disciplined defender. He's a good rebounder. But rebounding wasn't really the issue. Jimmy Butler got to the line 18 times and went 17 from 18. The Mavs struggled from the line in the first half. Not massively. It's not like they went to the line every single play, but they struggled from the line in the first half. They didn't shoot the 3-ball well. And you're right. You have to find a different way to score. I was wrong in the sense, because once again, me, along with so many people, discredit the pedigree of Jimmy Butler. And he truthfully might be, forget top 10, top 15, all that, he might be the most underrated player in basketball. He got 40 points and went 0 from 2 from 3. And you look, and I had conversations with other people because I had to look through a different lens. We live and die by the 3-ball. We put so much emphasis on the 3-ball in today's NBA. And I understand there's analytics to go behind it. And we've been privy now behind the scenes to some basketball players talking about analytics. But look at the guys who are in contention for MVP. Giannis is not a 3-ball shooter. Jokic can hit a 3 for sure. Not his game, really. Embiid is a threat from 3. Not his game. All of a sudden, the 3-ball that we've been living and dying by may not be the best way to the finals. It may be the Warriors' way to the finals because that's their bread and butter. But Jimmy Butler got to the line 18 times, and he went 17 of 18 from the free throw line, from the stripe. The Celtics are going to have to play a more disciplined brand of basketball. And it may come down to a Jason versus Jimmy type situation versus, whose sides or tertiary pieces can play better. Because if their best player is going to drop 40, our best player, and I know I've come on the show many a times and let my green and white heart bleed for number 7, Jaylen Brown. But the best player on the Celtics, without question, any day of the week, twice on Sundays, is Jason Tatum. And if Jimmy Butler is going to go get 40, he's got to match him tit for tat. And it's in Miami, and Miami is just as hard of a place to play their championship. Look, we discussed this on the show. These are 4 major, 4 major franchises in the NBA. Yeah. Dallas may be like the least of the 4, which is crazy. Which is crazy though, because think about us growing up. Like, they have one of the 15, 20 best players of all time. One of the 15 best players of our lifetime. They've got a championship, which how many teams have a champ? Like Nick's team made the Western Conference Finals. They won their first Western Conference Finals for the game for the first time last year. Right? Like do you guys forget that was the case? I saw a graphic. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot that was even the case. Like how big of a deal it was for the Clippers to get that far last year. Like, winning in the NBA is so tough, and the Mavs have a ring and they have a finals appearance, which Toss, I don't know if this is the time and place for it. Maybe should have 2 rings because of some officiating in that series. But I forgot. I like another thing, just going back, just dating ourselves once more. They showed right before the game, and I was like, oh no, because I watched the pregame at the gym. I was on the treadmill at the gym, and I saw the pregame. They flashed, like, obviously they were going to show like when the Mavs and Warriors met in the playoffs. Like the whole of the history. Right. And they flashed the number 8 beating the number 1, which is crazy.
It was a huge deal. It was one of the biggest flops an NBA franchise has had in the last 21 years. I mean, the Mavs were not only the 1 seed, but they also had the best record in the NBA. Dirk won MVP that year.
Oh my God.
That was really like the time where they were supposed to make the run and contend for a title. Turns out it happened 4 years later. But yeah, I mean, it was a hugely embarrassing loss, and against, it was a gritty Warriors team. Definitely not the same sort of identity that this team currently has. This is a winning team. This is a team that's won multiple championships, like you said. But I don't know. I don't necessarily even agree that the Warriors are a live and die by the 3-ball team either. I think that what I saw yesterday and why they're so tough to guard defensively is because they're in constant motion. Clay is one of the best cutters in basketball. He got like 3 open layups. Doesn't matter if his shot's not following. That's 6 points that's uncontested at the rim because it was a backdoor cut and there was no help side defender. That to me is the most impressive thing about these Steve Kerr coach teams is their ability to get just tremendously easy buckets, which doesn't happen, which is a reason why Jimmy Butler it should be such a phenomenon if any NBA fan is watching, because he can't shoot the 3-ball very well, but he still ended up with 40 points. And you have to finagle your way into putting the ball into the basket, whether that's getting to the line, whether that's shooting the mid range, attacking the rim, getting layups at the rim or floaters in the lane. And he does that really, really well. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities in the Heat game. Gabe Vincent had 17 points. Like, that's tough to swallow if you're a Celtics fan, right?
Yeah.
Strus had like 13 or 14. Some of these guys step up when they're at home, especially. And you're talking about Tatum. I mean, he still ended up with almost 30. Brown had less than 20 points. And that's tough when he's basically scoring the same as Gabe Vincent. That's a huge win in the Heat's category there. So there's still a lot of basketball left to play. And I don't want to jump the gun on either of these series yet. But if you're Nick, you got to be feeling pretty good about your predictions here, because the Heat are up 1-0 and the Warriors are up 1-0.
Yeah, and Spencer Dinwiddie is probably not feeling great that he's not going to get his $1 bonus when the Mavs don't win the championship. What is up with that? $1 bonus?
It's bizarre, but his Western Conference Finals bonus is like $560,000. It's quite hefty. So there's a lot of incentives there. I think it's just like, I don't know. He's an interesting guy. He's like really smart, but he's aggressively confident. The way he plays and how he is outside of the court, he's an interesting guy. But I did appreciate he was like the only one that played with some fire yesterday. Everyone else felt like they were on the back of their heels.
17 points, right?
Yeah,
I very much enjoy him, and it's funny you bring up Dinwiddie. And before I get to him, there's 2 things I want to say on the points you made. I texted in our group text last night. They moved the ball so well, and that came from the play when Clay was cutting, and then he hit that drop pass to Kevon Looney, who just had an easy slam. Like, that was just such poetry in motion. And that's, first of all, Looney and Thompson playing so well together. And that's what irked me. Everyone's jumping down Nick Wright's throat. And on one hand, I'm about to slip and slide on in. On the other hand, like, look, you're going to get wrong sometimes as an analyst, and I respect him at least, going for his prediction. But
yeah, I mean, but he's more right than he's been wrong. He was the only one that said the Mavs were going to be in the Western Conference Finals, and look, here they are. So
no, yeah, I'm not like you're going to shoot your shot, and I'm with him.
His name is Nick Wrong. His name is Nick Wright, not Nick Wrong.
Yeah, it's like the thing with his point about Clay, though, is like Clay doesn't dribble the basketball. Sure, but Clay is one of the best off-ball players on offense of our lifetime. The guy is always moving, always finding an open slot, always finding like breathing room, and he's great at going to the rack without the basketball, which sets up other players. And then to Jimmy's point, Jimmy finding other ways to score. We've talked about this, throughout the first part of our show, but people forget Jimmy Butler. People look at him as a guard forward and still classify him. Like, when we think of guard forward still, I feel like we think of like 6'4" to 6'6". Like, Jimmy Butler is like a 6'8", strong dude. Jimmy Butler going to the rack is not your typical quote-unquote 2-3, like the people viewed him as coming into the league. He's a big boy going to the rack. That is a strong man. It's tough to defend. So I think, obviously, him scoring in that capacity He's lethal going there. He's so tough. He's as strong as some of our bigs. You need Jalen to have a better shooting night. You need him not to go 60% from the line. He went 6 of 10, which is, it's not like he's going 18 to the line, but 10's a good amount of times getting to the line and just only going home with 6. You at least got to get me 8. Back to Dinwiddie. We always do cross sports, across baseball, basketball, cross-border athletes. But I feel like as we become more seasoned hosts, radio hosts, podcasters, we've taken taking the foot off the gas and stop and smell the roses, enjoying the PCH. So I'd like to cross Dinwiddie to one of our friends. He reminds me of our friend Berman, who's also into crypto. Dinwiddie takes a lot of his paycheck in crypto and puts a lot of it in crypto. He's a very peculiar guy, smart, doesn't make kind of sense of what you can't really predict what he's going to do, it seems, monetarily. So he reminds me of our friend Justin, and I wanted to throw that out there and give that a shout.
This inspires me to start a segment every episode to just describe a little bit of Justin Berman to the audience, just so they get a more vivid picture of who he is as we go along this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he is one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and it's absurd.
Give us a tidbit, Nick.
Give us something. What would you say is the most one of the most absurd aspects?
There's so many. I mean, the fact that he's pretty much nocturnal, right? Like goes to sleep at 6 a.m.
We could leave it at that. Yeah, one of our buddies was
planning on moving to Colombia this past year.
Yeah, he did do that for a month, and he didn't see any of the city because he's nocturnal. So those two things combined. He spent most of his time in his apartment, but he said it was awesome. What do the Mavs have to fix? One or two things, one or two adjustments you want to see?
Well, some of what you were talking about, their help side defenders had a lot of success because the shots weren't falling. If the shot falls, then the big that gets to chill in the paint, the Draymond, the Kevon Looney, has to be moved outside of the paint to respect the shooters in the corners. And then that allows more driving lanes for Luka. I think for me, it just, I don't want to see stagnation in their offense. So if Luka gets his one run, he gets the switch, he gets the defender that he has on him, that's fine. And he can attack there. And I trust him in that capacity. But when other guys have it, when Brunson has it, when Dinwiddie has it, I want to see more off-ball screens. I want to see more screens to the ball handler as well. Just more action, just more movement. And then for me, it's defensively. It's that drop-off pass to Kevon Looney is something I've seen again and again from the Mavs, where if there are 4 seconds left on the shot clock, they feel like they've won the possession defensively, but it's never over until the red light is blinking on the back of the basket. And too many times are they saying, okay, we've won the possession, and then it's a quick extra pass to a weak side guy at the rim and he has an easy flush, or it's a quick pass to a shooter that's doesn't have a hard contest to him because there's 1 second left on the shot clock. It's stuff that happened in the Suns series as well, where we kind of just give up, thinking that we've already won the possession defensively, but we haven't. You haven't won it until you do something like Draymond did to Dorian Finney-Smith in the corner, where he hard contested and blocked the shot when there was 1 second left on the shot clock. So I think just a lot of times the Mavs, they give that first leg of effort, but they don't give the second wave of effort that you have to have in playoff series. It's the same thing. It's like you contest a guy and then he swings the ball, but it's Steph or Clay, and then they cut back door. And it's like, you have to stay with them for the entire possession. So for me, that's the big step forward I want to see defensively. And then, as I mentioned, offensively, some of the shots just need to fall. And I'd like to see just some more action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on the possession and being more patient, because there's a lot of times the Celtics can show their quote unquote, even though they've been in this situation a multitude of times, they can show their youth in forcing bad shots. There was a couple of Nesmith possessions who, again, that goes to our depth. If Horford and Smart are playing, Aaron Nesmith's not playing.
Right.
And no shot on him. Like, he could still be a good player, but it's tough to just bring a young guy like that, like, off the pine when he's barely been playing this playoffs and stick him into like 12 minutes matter, like 11, 12 minutes matter. That's what he was playing. And there was a lot of times that we passed up open looks and just over moved the ball. And it fell to him with like a contested 3-point shot, which, is not his shot. His shot is the open three, but he went 0 for 3. So I'd love for Jason and Jalen to be a bit more aggressive. And I'd love for Jalen to kind of just find his game, obviously, in this upcoming game 2. But we'll see how that breaks down. We're in the charity stripe. Be back in just a hot second. Don't go anywhere. Joshua Fisher, Alexander Tsopoulos, and San Diego's own Nikki Snacks Kreider. We'll go at the 21 mark. We'll lead off with Jimbo stuff.
And for those of you who are watching our live right now, we're recording our radio show.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are recording our radio show. Yeah, we are.
We'll be back.
We'll be back
in 5 seconds.
4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. We're back, baby. It's a charity shot. Pitcher free throws because they're free. Joshua Fisher, Alexander Tsopoulos, and Nikki Snacks Kreider. If you like us, go listen to us more. We have Horns Up Talking Texas podcast with Quan Cosby, where we talk Texas football and such. A lot of all things Texas. Nick has the Ring the Bell pod talk. Padres talk. One day I'm going to get it, and that's with Heath Bell. Nick and Heath are going to do a live show soon in the coming weeks. Y'all are going to meet up in Texas. And I think we're going to get some Nick. We were talking about it on the line to Chick-fil-A, which, by the way, I hadn't eaten meat in almost 2 years. And I had Chick-fil-A with Nick the other day, and it was so good.
That was your first time having Chick-fil-A in like 2 years?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I haven't eaten.
Well, I know. You had said you'd been working meat back into your diet, so I didn't know what that was. Were you just eating like little niblets of like chicken here and there, or like what?
No, it was I was working it back in. Like I had Chipotle. I had
going Chipotle is like going in because like their meat is like heavy.
That's like welcome back.
Yeah, it was a welcome back moment. It was my welcome back moment, and that I got suckered into that. Quick story there, like it was BOGO if you had a hockey jersey at Chipotle. So I went with our buddies. A lot of shout outs again. Eric and George. Eric took my Islanders Johnny Tavares hockey jersey, and George took our buddy. You have a hockey jersey too. I thought he was going to show up in your
Dallas Lightning jersey.
Toss is a Lightning jersey. That's what it is.
It's Vincent LeCavalier.
And it sounds like it sounds like a clothing brand almost. Like when you said that, the
John Barbados, Vincent LeCavalier.
George shows up in our buddy Will's like JJ Watt hockey version sweatshirt. So I pay with George. We do the BOGO together, and then Eric's up next, and the cashier, I guess, sees George walking away, and the cashier goes to Eric. He goes, that's a JJ Watt jersey. That guy got me. Like as if like he snuck one past him, like it wasn't a real hockey player.
Let's talk about that. Should he have been allowed to have gotten the BOGO with a hockey style football jersey?
No.
I mean, the promotion was for the NHL playoffs, so technically no.
I agree.
But
I agree. I'm right.
Does the Chipotle employee really give two craps?
I don't think he gives 2 craps. I think it was more of his pride that he got. You know what I'm saying? By him right there. But yeah,
it's funny that because like the average Chipotle goer that like knows how to work the system, where you order double meat, but you order it after they've already scooped it. Like you ask them to like just put more meat on, instead of saying it at the beginning when you first start the order, I want double meat, in which case they're going to charge you for double meat. So everyone's always like, oh, the workaround is you wait, you let them plop the chicken on your bowl or in your burrito, and then you say, actually, can I have a little bit more meat? And then you're getting double meat without paying for it. And I feel like everyone that always works that kind of loophole is like, oh, I beat the system. But Nick, you're absolutely right. I don't think that any of the employees actually care. They're just like, what's one more half scoop of chicken meat? Like,
right, exactly. You can get a free tortilla. My roommate Brandon, I mean, I do the same thing every now and then. When I get a bowl, you ask for a tortilla on the side, and they just give it to you. Avocado, for some reason, or not avocado, guac is like $2.50 to put inside your. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I was like, can I get a little bit of guac? And it's a full charge of guac, $2.50.
What
we like sham. Though? Josh was really impressed. We were at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, and he said no tomato, no ketchup on his sandwich because he's allergic to teas. And they took off 20 cents for taking off the tomato. And just like, you know what? That is really noble of Chick-fil-A to take off. I mean, am I going to miss that 20 cents? Probably not. But just to let the customers know that we're taking care of you, we're taking off that extra 20 cents. Because realistically, how much is that one tomato to
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A?
Apparently,
we were-
it's 20 cents.
And I know, and
Well,
like
it's a slice of
Chick-fil-A,
tomato.
yeah, it's a
Right.
slice. And Chick-fil-A is like a notoriously not so noble brand, and we know that. We love it still because as a food, you know, it's kind of like the Sean Penn of food. You just look at the work, and that we know that starts from the top down at Chick-fil-A, really, being not so noble, but that's okay. But I was really, I was
I
really,
wouldn't call him the Sean Penn of food. I don't think Chick-fil-A had any domestic violence cases.
yeah, but they have like the whole like, you know, there's some issues with Chick-fil-A that people have. Mainly, my issue with Chick-fil-A is that whenever I want it, it's Sunday and I can't get it. When you're hungover on Sunday and you want Chick-fil-A,
What a
maybe,
first world problem.
yeah, I know. But
That's why you
going,
go to Cane's.
that's Cane's is great. There's
You're
one that's like
speaking. You're speaking like as if that's your experience, and it was, but it was prior to 2 years ago. So it's been a
it
while.
was it's been, but when I was going back to meet, I wanted it on that Sunday before we were going to go meet up with Rudy Gay to record his show. I was about to put in our group text with Rudy Gay. I'm like, hey, does anybody want Chick-fil-A? I'm going to stop. And then I remembered, I was like, oh man, like that'd be super lame if I even asked that. Like it'd be such a rookie move to ask that. So I was like, dang, I'm not even
It
going
really
to pose that
would've
out there.
You know what else is super lame?
Yeah, talk to
Nick
us, Nick.
Saban.
Yeah.
He's being super lame right now. He's basically calling out Texas A&M, which we're not fans of because we're Texas fans, but calling out Texas A&M, basically saying they got the top ranked program or the top recruiting class this year just because they paid their players NIL money, right? If it had nothing to do with that, then they would be nowhere near the top. And my argument to that is let's talk about Nick Saban's time at Alabama before NIL was a thing, because we've heard murmurs from people across college football who have played, who have been a part of organizations that, you know, or who have been recruited, who have mentioned that those Bama guys had been throwing the bag at players well before NIL was a thing, not just Bama, but SEC in general. So I think Nick Saban is just woe is me right now because his recruiting class isn't as good as the younger brother in the SEC, Texas A&M. And Jimbo Fisher just clapped back in a press conference and basically saying this is total bullcrap, and pretty much trashed Nick Saban, who Jimbo came from Nick Saban's coaching tree, right?
Maybe. Off the top of my head, I mean, both these guys, you gotta like both these guys have been coaching forever. But to the point of like, yeah, you know,
They were together at LSU.
Players coach, yeah, players being paid in the past, sure, but like, what about now? Nick Saban's like, we get $3 million. Our 25 players got $3 million, and they did it the right. What's the right way here? Seriously, there's no rules. We talk about this on our Horns Up podcast. There's no rules for NIL right now. So him saying the right way, wrong way type situation, no, because there's no rules. Right. So A&M is just operating within whatever boundaries there are, and quite frankly, there aren't really any.
There's zero. Right now, everything is just going to the highest bidder. I mean, we're looking at Jordan Addison right now, who won the Blitnikoff Award last year for University of Pitt, and he's narrowed it down to Texas and USC because those are the two teams that are probably getting him the most NIL money.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, we knew A&M did this. I don't care. Like, and he's accused Deion Sanders of throwing a mill to Travis Hunter to get him to go to Jackson State. It was the #1 recruit in the class. And Deion Sanders says that's blasphemous, and he's going to go off and sound off on Nick Saban as well. Whether he did or he didn't, I don't care, because that's the way the game is being played right now. Fortunately, unfortunately, we've been clamoring for these guys to get paid, and now they're getting paid, and we're up in arms about it. Well, you know what? The NCAA, once again, playing from behind the 8 ball, full reaction mode versus action mode. And this is what happens when you don't set rules and regulations and you just open season.
Yeah.
When you just allow for this to happen on a whim, which is what the case has been, you're going to have these kinds of issues. And woe is me is right, Saban. Like, he had the number 2 recruiting class. Like, dude, all your quarterback is back. Like,
he's just not the guy that should be allowed to be justifiably upset. Like,
yeah,
if the Mizzou coach came out, if the Syracuse coach came out and was like, "Look, we can't,"
Temple.
Like, it's Alabama. Like, you have just as much of a likelihood next year to make the playoffs as you did last year. And also last year before the season started, how many times did the three of us talk about Bryce Young getting $1 million before he even played a snap?
Exactly. Like, it's a classic case of like rich, cool kid who's been in the VIP section his entire life, now getting upset that more people are allowed to come into the VIP section because he was there first. It's like, you're Alabama, right? And you're Nick Saban. I feel like you should be a little bit more noble about it and just show A&M how you feel on the field. Like, just say it with your play. Nick Saban knows better. He's been in the game for a long time. He's going to go down as probably the greatest college football greatest college football coach of all time. And right now he's just looking like a prima donna.
Well, the greatest recruiter of all time. No question.
Yeah, well, I think that goes hand in hand with being a college coach.
Sure, yeah. And like, I think because basketball is different. I think there's guys that are better recruiters than they are coaches. There's like, I wouldn't say the best. I wouldn't say Calipari is the best coach, but he's maybe the best recruiter. But that does in college, it does go.
In college football, though, recruiting is right there with scheming.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I'm not even necessarily sure that Saban has that much to do with schematics even anymore in his program. I mean, he kind of lets a lot of the coordinators take over. And that's why they get huge jobs. That's why Sarkisian comes to Texas, right? And that's why Lane Kiffin gets a gig, and that's why Jimbo Fisher, who was one of his coordinators, gets a gig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that he has a lot to do with the defense still. But yeah, I mean, his coaching tree is uber successful, and these guys are all like major programs. Kirby, yeah, major programs. It's just really off base. It's just, dude, like, you're not the one that should be speaking on this, and we hit the nail on the head. Like, if it's Texas and West Virginia wants to come out and cry, I can understand. Like, hey, like, that sucks because there's no salary cap. You're at a complete disadvantage, and this is like MLB without the luxury tax. Right. Which people adhere to in baseball. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it's like the Yankees basically getting mad at the Dodgers for spending money.
1,000%. It's 1,000% what it is. That's exactly what it is, and which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. On the Yankees,
which is funny because I know a couple Yankees fans who do get mad about that kind of stuff.
Like, eat me seriously, because the Yankees were able to absorb Giancarlo's ridiculous contract. And when Giancarlo plays, he's fantastic. But they were able to absorb his absurd contract of $300. He was one of the first, maybe was he the first $300 million man in baseball? And they absorbed that contract, like I absorbed that Chick-fil-A Sandy the other day that we mentioned earlier. The quick, for those who couldn't catch. They're going to pay Judge, who, go to betonline.ag today, use the promo code BELIEVE for 50% off your welcome bonus, BLEAV, betonline.ag. Go there. Aaron Judge is like plus 600 for the MVP. I know the two-way Shohei Ohtani. I know Trout's been unbelievable in the war, and the defense will speak for itself. Aaron Judge is on a war path. And he might have been robbed of that MVP when he lost to Altuve, then when they were cheating, sign stealing. So this could be his redemption year, and it's a contract year. Aaron Judge is going to get paid. And if he wins the MVP, I know the New York fan base, they're not letting him walk. They're going to pay him whatever he wants. They paid. Oh, by the way, Giancarlo Stanton's is not the only $300 million man on the roster. Garrett Cole's there.
Mm-hmm.
Chapman makes some money. Anthony Rizzo ain't cheap. DJ LeMahieu. Like, shall we run down the entire lineup? Like, everyone
what's Gallo's contract?
Gallo, like, yeah, I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here? You know?
If Glaber stays, right?
Yeah, like he'll get some cash. Like, you know, it's like the whole thing with like the Red Sox don't want to. We're like inching to pay Devers, inching to pay Bogarts. What are you doing, dude? You're not the Royals. If you have the money, use the money type thing. And I know we're just segueing into baseball. But we did want to talk about some awards and stuff like that. I think the Aaron Judge plus 600 is a good bet to me.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, especially because he's on the best team in baseball.
Sure.
But yeah, he's been crushing it all year long. The favorite right now is Ohtani, I believe. But if you look at his hitting stats, it's not that impressive. I mean, the impressive part is that it's always going to be that he pitches and he hits, but every now and then he gets knocked around on the mound, and he's hitting below 250 right now with only 8 home runs, opposed to Aaron Judge's 306 with 14 home runs. So, and that's in more at bats too. Ohtani has 158 at bats. Aaron Judge has 134. Mike Trout has also been playing some great ball. I mean, he's leading, I think, the league in OPS plus and OPS and WAR. So maybe he goes to him, but it's hard to say. I mean, Judge has just been on fire on the best team in baseball.
Yeah, the novelty of the two-way thing is going to wear off. It is. That's just, we know how sports goes. It's the LeBron effect.
Yeah.
People were sick of giving LeBron the MVP. They started doling it around. People are going to be sick of, they're going to be like, okay, we've seen this before. It's not going to be like this wow factor.
Yeah, well, we like shiny new things. When sports fans like a good story of like a new player coming up and winning their first award.
100%.
Unless it's Mike Trout. I think everyone loves Mike Trout winning MVP.
Yeah, and they're actually good this year. You talk about the Yankees being the best team. They are, but they are good.
Yeah, of course, they're great. And they've been able to piece together a nice roster, and their pitching's finally pretty good. One of the things about Mike Trout, I think that we love so much, why we like seeing him win MVPs, which is counter to the LeBron argument, which I think some people also like seeing LeBron win the MVP, because we know that we're in the presence of greatness, that the more MVPs Mike Trout wins, the more it solidifies him as quite possibly the greatest player in baseball, and that we're able to witness that.
Yeah.
The only issue and the only missing piece, of course, and we know because he hasn't been able to get there, is winning, being able to make the playoffs and piece together a championship team. And that's out of his control.
Yeah, it is. And which is crazy because the emphasis on winning in other sports has now put that emphasis on winning in baseball. Because back in the day, like, how many rings does Griffey have? How many does Bonds have? These guys don't have rings. Sosa didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of these guys don't like how many did Albert has 2? Miggy has 1, and that was on the Marlins. Never did it in Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, winning
it's hard to compare it to like those old school Yankees that just like have like 10 each.
When they have Garrick, DiMaggio, yeah, sure. Yeah. It's like it's brutally tough.
Willie Mays only has 1.
They did make runs though. The Mariners made runs. The Tigers made runs. Like
Tigers got there. Mariners didn't get there. They had shots though. The Mariners,
right? Like
Tigers,
I think because it's so difficult to win, that's one thing, right? So like getting the actual ring itself, like you said, a lot of that is out of your control as a field player,
right?
But you can control the narrative of your team to a certain extent and get your team to the playoffs. Like you can impact that. And you have to have the help, right? And like this year, it seems like he has the help. So this could be a really big year, not only for him to potentially win MVP. You know, both he and Judge have dealt with some minor bumps and bruises as well. So you never know how that's going to affect, you know, making that bet. But I still think your value, Josh, that you mentioned on Judge is good, especially if they remain the hottest team in baseball throughout the rest of the year. But this could be a huge legacy year for Trout, just from a performance standpoint, and if they get to the playoffs, what they do there, right?
He's gonna come back player of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, think about the way that we look at Kershaw as a pitcher because of his playoff successes and failures, right? Like it feels a little unfair at certain points that we would be that critical of certain guys. I know, because it's like once you get into that moment, then we look at you with a much
that's the thing.
tighter lens.
The difference is Trout hasn't been there. Kershaw's been there, and he's choked in big situations.
The pitcher value is different because the pitcher has like more control on a moment to moment basis. So he's gotten more of the flack.
He shook the monkey off his back. He got his World Series. He pitched well.
He's hurt again too. He was so good. He killed me. He really frustrates me.
One aspect that I'll touch on really quickly about Mike Trout is that you could control to help his team. He's taking less of a contract. And it's easier for me to say sitting in a chair who's just based off a salary that, is average on, what Americans make. But Mike Trout's making over $400 million, right? He's taking away money from his organization to spend other money elsewhere that could help, get better weapons that can help his pitching. So there's that. But Angels, Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, both some of the best teams in baseball right now, all of them. So this is going to be really interesting going down the stretch to see if the LA teams and the New York teams can actually make a push to all four make the playoffs. Because that's really interesting in my opinion. I don't think that's happened in forever.
Yeah,
if ever.
Crazy. It'd be crazy. You know what? But some of these guys are wearing a lot of good clothing, right, Toss?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean,
that's why they're playing so well.
The nicest clothing. It is why they're playing so well. And most likely, I haven't looked at every single outfit, but from like 70% of the ones that I have looked at, they're wearing 10,000 because it is the most elite athletic apparel that's out there. We all wear it. We all have the 7-inch interval short that we are rocking frequently. If I stood up right now, you'd be able to see that I have my kind of like eggshell white shorts on with the black band around the midsection. They have tons of features like silver ion for odor protection, no bounce pockets, breathable and lightweight shell fabric, no bounce phone pocket, which is the biggest thing for me, at least, because I don't like when I'm working out, when I'm doing, when I'm jumping rope or I'm doing HIIT exercises, my phone is just bouncing up and down in my pocket. In addition to the interval short, they make gear specific to other types of training, from running to Olympic lifting to boxing. So you can find a short for all the ways you train. The brand believes in being better than yesterday, a stoic dedication to continuous improvement, not overnight success. They have a team of over 200 athlete tests who test their gear to ensure the perfect design, fabric, trims, and fit. Some of those baseball players we mentioned are some of those athlete testers themselves. So if you're interested in purchasing some 10,000 apparel, they're offering our listeners 15% off your purchase. Go to 10,000.cc/stripe to receive 15% off your purchase. Again, that's 10,000.cc/stripe.
Thank you. We only talked to AL MVP, but shout out to Manny Machado. Let's go, baby. Get that Padres MVP from Manny Machado, the current favorite. His odds are still solid. What are they before we rock and roll, Nick? They're not bad. They're like plus 375.
Yeah, something around that. It's around 400 or lower. I think the competition's not as spread out as it is in the AL.
But I still like that. I still like those odds. They're almost as good as judges, which we were, professing. Fans out there, thanks for joining us. Drag both feet in bounds. We're going to full count, rip that puck at that putt. Hit your PKs because they're free. Hit your free throws. Why, guys?
Because they're free.
Because they're free. We outro. We love ya.